Greetings, this is Charles Darwin, and it is the 5th of June 2012, and what you are observing is the transit of Venus. This is where Venus moves across the face of the Sun as observed from the Earth. This only happens about twice a century, 8 years apart, but those 8-year intervals are themselves separated by 121.5 and 105.5 year intervals. So this is something that you're not going to see again for a long time. None of you who are watching this video now will live to see this event again. It was first observed by Jeremiah Horrocks in 1639. Why was it such a big deal? Venus moves across the face of the Sun as viewed from the Earth, but in 1639 the Copernican model was as new as my ideas of evolution are new right now. Exciting just to know that the planets are revolving around the Sun. Just like right now, some people are only beginning to understand the species evolve. By 1761, scientists were ready to observe the transit from different parts of the world, because it takes hours. For example, it will not be finished by sunset here in California, where I'm taking this picture. By using triangulation, scientists would then be able to calculate how far away the Sun is. In 1761, there were scientists in Siberia, Norway, Newfoundland, Madagascar, and the Cape of Good Hope. And then 8 years later, in 1769, there were scientists in Hudson Bay, Baja, and Norway, and Captain Cook watched it in Tahiti from a point that is now called Point Venus. So this allowed astronomers to calculate some of the dimensions of the inner solar system. Another exciting thing is that if the solar system was precisely designed exactly like a machine, the way they thought it was back in the Middle Ages, then you would see the transit of Venus every year. But the plane of revolution of the Earth is not equal to that of Venus. Early cracks in the design model of the solar system showed up at this point. And then I went ahead and with evolution, I pretty much shattered the rest of the design model, but it started hundreds of years earlier when people realized the planets aren't all lined up like a perfect celestial sphere, the harmony of the spheres, the music of the spheres. French scientist Guillaume de Legentile traveled to India to see the 1761 transit. Indeed, when he got there, it was a clear day, but war had broken out and his ship could not land, so it was lurching, and so he couldn't observe it. So he decided to wait there for the 1769 transit. He built an observatory, and every day for the previous month was clear until that day. And then it was cloudy. This drove him to the brink of insanity. Meanwhile, back in France, he'd been declared legally dead, his possessions had been lost, his wife had remarried, and worst of all, since he was dead, he lost his seat in the Academy of Sciences. After litigation and the intervention of the king, he got back his estate, at least part of it. He remarried, and he lived another 21 years, and he got his seat back in the Academy of Sciences. It also occurred in December of 1874 and December of 1882. For the 1882 transit, Sousa wrote a march called The Transit of Venus. It was so famous that Mark Twain put it in his story about the animals of the forest conducting a scientific expedition. And they went out and tried to interpret what things were in the human world. And they came across some railroad tracks, and a train went by with a light on it at night. And they figured, that must be the transit of Venus. Well, it's not quite such an important thing today because we have so many other ways of measuring astronomical distances. But if you want to see this again, you're going to have to wait until December of 2117 or December of 2125. Well, I think I'd better bring this to a close because there's some people coming, and I would just love to be able to show them the transit of Venus, just like I'm telling you about it. And there's even a Catholic priest wearing his robe in that group. The Catholic Church has now made its peace with the model of the Sun being the center of the solar system. Well, I hope they will enjoy it. This is Charles Darwin. Tally ho!